I'm going to just read to you some of what I've written here in preparation for my court appearance, which was on Wednesday, the 23rd of June, at the City of London Magistrates Court for an arrest that I was arrested in September 2020, sitting on the ground peacefully in Parliament Square. I didn't mean to get arrested. I believed I was legitimately protesting in an allowed space, exercising my rights under Articles 10 and 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights, before the seat of UK democratic power. The CEE Bill, the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill, was being put forward in Parliament that day, and I was present there to support it. I was given no notice that the police planned to arrest me. If I had been informed that the area where I was sitting was a prohibited area, and if I had been explained to that I shouldn't be there, I would have moved. I would have been happy to cooperate. As it was, I was given no warning, no information, except in the 60 seconds prior to my arrest, when I couldn't hear or see the information shown me because there was deafening samba drumming around me and I didn't have my glasses to hand. It was a bit like the Birmingham tornado that hit Balsall Heath in 2005, where it just all happened in a matter of seconds and came seemingly from nowhere, that I was in the midst of this whirlwind. I'm of good character. I've got no previous convictions. I'm a Quaker and I'm an elder for my local Quaker Meeting. I also practice meditation in the tradition of the Zen Vietnamese peace activist Thich Nhat Hanh, and I was actually in meditation at the time of my arrest. My first degree was in human sciences at Balliol College, Oxford. I was contemporary with our current Prime Minister there. Just let that siren pass. There we go. My professional and vocational calling has been to be a midwife, and I have been employed as a midwife, a community midwife, and most recently a home birth team midwife with the same maternity trust for 30 years. I've held the space for hundreds, perhaps over 1,000 births, and I've helped as many or more babies breastfeed in their early hours and days so that they might grow, thrive and flourish. As a midwife, and especially as a home birth midwife, I'm attuned to avert emergencies. I also manage emergencies when they rarely happen. I was in my midwife's uniform when I was arrested. Being a midwife has been my life's work. When I'm called to attend a birth, I respond. I head out into the night, through the snow even, to a woman who needs me, to provide skilled support and care. I wore my uniform, symbolically, on September the 1st, as I wanted to be conspicuous as a midwife. I wanted to demonstrate that midwives care beyond birth and the postnatal period. In Balsall Heath, where I live, I've been community midwife since 1997. I'm personally accountable for my professional practice, as I am visible and known in my local community. When not in uniform, when I'm shopping locally, at the school gates, or walking our dog in the park, women, many veiled in hijab, recognise me, though I may not immediately recognise them. I've been midwife repeatedly for some women, and I have been midwife for more than one generation in some families. I'm professionally accountable to my employer and to the NMC, the Nursing and Midwifery Council. The NMC Code of Conduct 2020, which guides and governs midwives' practice, states, act without delay if you believe that there is a risk to patient safety or public protection. Raise, and if necessary, escalate concerns you may have about patient or public safety. On September the 1st, in uniform, in Parliament Square, I was symbolically escalating my concerns. I believe patient and public safety is at risk. Serious, grievous, existential risk. As I sat in Parliament Square in my uniform, I wore a bright pink Extinction Rebellion flag around my shoulders. Here it is. It says, "Tell the truth." By my presence in Parliament Square on September the 1st in uniform, I was telling the truth. Not far from me, lying on the ground, was a young man with a photograph of a newborn baby. Beside the photograph he had written, "I'm here for her." Well, I was corroborating his truth, and the truth for all newborns in the era of climate emergency, which is also a health and maternity emergency. I'm a parent too. My son is 16. I was there for him as well. The truth is that we know every baby born today is at existential risk in a way their parents were not. As global temperatures rise, overheating, hypothermia, becomes an increasing risk, as does dehydration due to inadequate and unsafe water sources, malnutrition and starvation due to food shortages and insecurity caused by crop failures, more widespread vector-borne diseases such as malaria and dengue fever, loss of primary carers from pandemics, extreme weather events, community displacement, social unrest, conflict, war, stress, anxiety, and depression. Air pollution alone already claims 64,000 people in the UK every year. Yet, the government continues to provide annual fossil fuel subsidies amounting to £10.5 billion. The morning after my arrest, after being released from Wandsworth police cell at 2 a.m. in the morning, I participated with John, my husband, in the XR doctors and other health professionals' corpses action back in Parliament Square. John lay under a white sheet with his bare feet sticking out in corpse pose, and I was again in uniform as midwife, handing out death certificates as the coroner pronounced on the failings of our government to keep our population safe in the face of the climate, health and ecological emergency. I've always been concerned to tread lightly on the earth, to minimise and keep reducing my carbon footprint by cycling, not flying, being vegetarian, I'm pretty much now vegan, and living in the zero carbon house that my husband John designed. I have naively thought that these personal actions, especially if they caught on, would be enough to keep us safe. In 2018, John's dad died, and then my dad. Both had lived long, fulfilled lives, and both were in their 80s with dementia that progressed to end stage, with each of them losing faculty after faculty in a process of disintegration and falling apart that was devastatingly sad to watch, day by day over 7 or 8 years, I feel the collapse of the ecosystem of an individual human being parallels the collapse of our planet's ecosystem on scale. My dad was a music lecturer and composer, and composed beautiful music inspired by the songs of threatened birds and already extinct birds, the skylark, the nightingale, the New Zealand huia, the dodo. My personal wake-up to the meaning of the climate and ecological emergency was in April 2019, when I watched David Attenborough's Climate Change, The Facts on the television. In 2017, I had revisited the Mer de Glace, the glacier near Chamonix in the Alps, and I had witnessed firsthand the colossal loss of glacier ice since I had visited first 40 years previously. But, as I say, it was the footage on the David Attenborough programme that really got to me about the meaning of the climate and ecological emergency. It was the bats nursing their young. Bats are mammals like us, that woke me up. The bats were falling out of the tree and dying as the temperature rose to 40 to 41 degrees centigrade in a heat wave. The bats' babies were crying. As midwife, I've known the importance of keeping the temperature of the water in a birthing pool, where a mother is fully immersed in labour, below 38 degrees, so as not to overheat the mother or the baby. The baby in utero is 1 degree hotter than the mother herself. Mammals' metabolic processes depend on enzymes. Enzymes are proteins. Proteins are destabilised at 38 to 39 degrees and denatured or killed at higher temperatures at 40 to 41 degrees. They function best in the narrow temperature margin of 36.5 to 37.5 degrees. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has warned us of the devastating effects of rising global temperatures. We're already 1.2 degrees above pre-industrial temperatures, with a further temperature rise to 3 or possibly 4 degrees above pre-industrial temperatures locked in. Great swathes of the planet are predicted to be inhospitable, if not uninhabitable, by humans, bats, and most life by the end of the century, well within the potential lifetime of babies being born now. Like the birthing mother, midwives, especially home birth midwives, experience a rush of endorphins, feel-good hormones, after a physiological, normal birth. These hormones make us glow as if we had vicariously given birth ourselves. This reward is partly what keeps us going, working long hours, these days in PPE, for relatively little pay, given the responsibility of our role. I stepped back from my role as an employed midwife last year. I resigned because since I woke up to the reality of our existential crisis, a big dollop of grief lies close alongside the joy of welcoming a newborn. When I first woke to this crisis, I would feel that grief, my first thought waking every day. It was most like the feelings I experienced when I miscarried my first baby. I'm seeking now to discover how to live my life meaningfully in the culture of grief. Quakers talk about discerning what love requires. I'm trying to work out a balance between birth and death, where to place myself, between living and grieving. I draw inspiration from my blood ancestors who have acted out of conscience and spoken truth to power in the moral and political emergencies of their times. My English grandpa, a Methodist lay preacher and history grammar school master, was a conscientious objector in the Second World War. My Irish great-grandfather, a Methodist Protestant businessman, made representation for a peaceful solution in the sectarian and political slaughter and destruction of Ireland in 1920. My medical forebears, a doctor in Skibbereen, West Cork, during the potato famine in the 1840s. A great uncle, a stretcher bearer on the front in France in the First World War. Nurses and doctors also working during the First World War, and great uncles who served on the front in France as soldiers. I acted out of conscience on September the 1st in Parliament Square. As I sat in meditation, I was symbolically placing my own body in harm's way ahead of the fragile bodies of the babies whose births I've held safe over the 30 years of my professional career. Our UK government representatives, I imagined, were at the wheel of the juggernaut of climate change, driving dangerously, recklessly, not applying the brakes, but instead accelerating towards the babies in the road. I was placing my body in front of them to do what I can to lessen the impact. Deafening samba drumming surged around me, and the next thing I realised, I was surrounded on all sides by the legs of perhaps 4 or 5 police officers in big boots. I didn't see them coming. I had my eyes closed, and the next thing I knew, they'd hoisted me shoulder high and were carrying me away.